Oh, wow. This is a great topic. And we talk about divergent and convergent thinking here all the time.
Cool.
We actually are very fortunate to have a really nice blend of both and often tend to create teams or couplings of people together, where when you put kind of like a divergent thinker and a convergent thinker together, they really help support each other, because I think yes, that is those two levers or those two pedals, and they're actually stronger together.
Yeah.
The metaphor of, the Wright brothers when they were designing the first airplanes and they were struggling over the propellers, and if it was a left propeller or the right propeller
Right.
going in the direction, the answer was both.
Right.
The answer was both, and they were turning in opposite directions. Right. And that was actually what makes an airplane take off and fly.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the value of both divergent and convergent thinking, they both hold value. And, when it comes to innovation too, right, going back to that, you need to be able to have a divergent muscle, right? You have to be able to think beyond, take a step outside. And especially when you're working with scientists and chemists who've been rigorously trained, and their training guides them to stay in the box, right? Like that's why they're successful. And so to be able to diverge from that in a comfortable setting in a way that's still applying the safety measures and efficacy measures and research, but to take that divergent thinking up, but then be able to converge that down and be able to drive that forward and to move quickly, because as we know, this industry is moving quickly at the same time. So, when it comes to approaching, someone who might be more stubborn or more reluctant, which we certainly have, and I am certainly included in that. I will not.
Oh, present company, please. Present company is absolutely included for me.
It is, it's also really about thinking like a scientist.
Yeah.
And I actually read recently the new book, Think Again by Adam Grant, about how to not only change how others think, but change your own mind. Your mind can be the hardest one to break.
Absolutely.
And rather than approaching problems, and he outlines kind of people can approach problems in usually typically one of three ways. You're either like a preacher up on your soapbox, like kind of like touting your idea is the best idea. You're kind of like a politician who's trying to like win people over to your side, or you're a prosecutor who's just trying to eviscerate someone else's approach. It's like, why don't we think of everything more scientifically? And even if it's not a scientific problem to solve, of what is our hypothesis? Let's ask the right questions around that hypothesis. Like, why do we think this product should be developed? What role would it serve? How would we approach it? And then, how are we going to measure that? How are we going to see if our hypothesis is right? How are we going to define it? Through consumer testing, through doing studies, through getting those products to market with our partners and understanding if they work. And then if your hypothesis proves right as a scientist, that's great. If your hypothesis proves wrong, that's even better.
It's also great. Yeah, it's even better.
Learn something. So, at OPX, we take that very scientific level of approach to all that we do, to really be comfortable asking questions, be comfortable to try something and see if it works. So that can alleviate some of that stubbornness and some of that, kind of unwillingness to unlock from a certain level of thinking. And we're also in, again, such a young and, ever-changing industry where, we're discovering new ingredients, we're building new formulas, new products are coming to market. The products that are in market today are so much different than what was in it 6 months ago.
Right.
So you really have to be quite open-minded. And I think, cultivating that here, and cultivating that throughout the organization where ideas come from everyone and come from everywhere is really important to do that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that Adam Grant book, he's a Philly guy. We'll have to see if we can get Adam on the podcast. And if we do,
that would be great.
Yeah, I'll make sure to ping you for it, and tell him that's why. But I love those paradigms too of like, are you trying to win someone over? Are you trying to get someone to believe your opinion? I think the fascinating thing, and gosh, I just love that you said it, was the the couplets of divergent and convergent thinkers. And for you chemistry nerds out there, it's like enantiomers, right? It's a racemic mixture at OBX, and you get both of them. That's for like the deep chemistry nerds that are out there. Yeah, and I think the process of like approaching things from a hypothesis analysis perspective, like a scientist, right? Where, sure, we're trying to solve for a specific test. We're not planning to failure, but we're planning for failure, because that is ultimately success. It tells us how to not make a light bulb, so to speak. It's literally on the wall in front of our conference room. We have our innovation guidelines, and that's one of them. And it's a car flipped on its head. It's like, okay, well, now we know.
That's right.
The other aspect of it is, and I think this was espoused by the Air Force, it's called an OODA loop, OODA, and it's observe, orient, decide, act. So at every stage of our process, making an observation of kind of what the landscape is from a sales perspective, marketing perspective, research perspective, R&D, all kind of aspects of a new product development. Reorienting, not like we're kind of canceling work because we do a lot of parallel path, but reorienting, making decisions, and then moving forward. Because so much of it feels like my job at Oat Foundry, but also I'm sure you see it amongst your teams, is like, we just actually need to keep progress going. We just need to keep moving forward.